wrapped up in your bed. Do you know what it's like to be me? I feel like I'm taken, but I'm technically free. But you want it so bad, so you just keep on telling lies. Do you not see my pain when you look?
All right, happy Monday. Welcome back to Morning Coffee. I'm your host, Rick Alexander. You guys can follow me at @RickAlexander_ and at the Morning Coffee Podcast on Instagram. And that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. If you want to talk about getting in the Clarity Academy, or if you want to have me come speak at your organization, then honestly, I do a lot of my business in the DMs, as weird as that is. So that's probably the best way to reach out and connect with me. And then on top of that, of course, if you share the show with your audience or with your following, with your family, with your friends, with anybody you think might resonate with the message, it means the world to me. That introduction music since day one has been Brittany Taylor. We've only switched it up a few times. Brittany Taylor is at Brittany Taylor on Instagram as well, and she does some photography, she does nutrition, she does all kinds of stuff, so give her a follow as well. Of course, she has an amazing voice. All right, so we're still moving back through the last 6 months of transformation, and I'm going through my journal for some of these things that really had a big impact on my life, because I know that if they impacted me, then there's a lesson in it for other people as well. And when I journal, I use the aesthetics of the page as well as actually just writing in the page to sort of express how I'm feeling at the time, and I'm not sure that I can even explain that through audio, but basically this one page only has these 3 lines that I'm going to read today, and then I kind of want to break down what those lines are. But I can think back, I wrote this back in, March or something like that, and I can tell that I felt that this was really important because I left everything else on the page blank, and that's the power of minimalism in any space, right? It's like when things are left unsaid, it makes what is said so much more powerful. So I can tell that's what I was doing with the page, and that's actually the impetus between minimal lifestyle living, minimalism art. Like, if you take things away, it makes what is more powerful. And so the 3 lines are: desire is the root of pain, expectation is the root of resentment, and then entitlement is the root of jealousy. Now, some of these are pretty obvious, but the reason that I think it's important to understand the root of things is that we're all dealing with symptoms all day long. And what we do is we're always trying to fix the symptom. We always self-soothe. That's what basically all the biggest industries in our world are for, is to help us deal with the actual damn thing that we built. And so we have all of these industries that are for self-soothing. And so I think what would be so much more beneficial for our lives, I know it has been in my life, is if I start feeling something, then I try to get to the root of what that is, because if I'm just feeling it, it's hard for me to have any separation from it, and then you end up becoming whatever it is you're going through. But if you can take a step back and you can figure out what's at the root of what you're going through, well, then you have a chance of solving the problem going forward, and that's so much better than putting a Band-Aid on it today. And so this first one, desire is the root of pain, is pretty obvious, right? Like that's something that's basically the foundation on which Buddhism is built. It says this idea that if you need something, you're saying you don't have something, and so there's something that's wrong with what is. And so, yes, desire is the root of pain, but to think about it in your own life, where are you experiencing pain, and then get down to what the desire behind that pain is, because it might not be so straightforward. Like, sometimes we're in pain because we miss somebody. But if you really think back to what it was like at the end when you were with that person, it actually wasn't that good, and it actually probably needed to end, and you actually know that. But because you have this intense desire to be with somebody, and maybe somebody that you miss or whatever, and this is just one example, well, then you're in this situation where you're desiring something different than what is, but you actually wouldn't want what you could desire in the first place anyway if you could have it, right? Because you're forgetting about all of the stuff that wasn't so good, that whatever reason. And so that's just one example. If you can get to the root of what's going on, you can actually, reframe the desire quite a bit and just take a lot of pain away by understanding that your mind is kind of playing tricks on you, because everything's not all so straightforward. And most likely the moment actually has everything that you need. That's something that I believe deeply. The moment has everything you need in order for your soul to evolve. And I truly always believe that. But as humans, it's part of our condition. We have this memory, so we remember how things were. But like I've said on here a million times, the past doesn't actually exist. It's only in your head. And so if you're desiring something that was, it's just because you're missing what is. And so you can take a lot of your pain away by getting to the root of it. Expectation is the root of resentment. And so And that sort of goes along these lines of entitlement. I think if you're born in Western culture, you basically don't get to not be entitled to something. I was thinking about this as I was talking to a friend. Her dad was saying their house was taken away, and I'm like he grew up in another country, in a third world country, in another time. He had his house seized by the government and basically had to flee to Mexico and to the U.S. And what's interesting is I was thinking about that, and it's like, oh yeah, see, that's why I have entitlement, because that shit doesn't happen to me. And it was never expected that it was going to happen to me. I basically grew up knowing the government was probably not going to take my house unless I was born in the middle of a railway or something crazy, right? And so I have some entitlement. And so I have some entitlement about what's mine and what I should have. And the only reason I'm saying that is it's good to know. It's good to know where you stand with things, right? Because it's like, where is this damn resentment coming from? Because resentment will eat you alive if you don't address it. Truly, it will wreck your life because it will just grow and grow, and since it lives under the surface, you're never paying any mind to it. So you got to pay mind to the things that you expect from other people, and are you putting expectation on them that's quite honestly not fair to the situation? Okay, and then the last line is that entitlement is the root of jealousy. Well, actually, that's Western culture personified. That's the keeping up with the Joneses. So I was actually going to go down this long example, but I don't need to. That's keeping up with the Joneses. That's what, that is what jealousy is. But you have this entitlement that you're expected to have something that's nicer or better. And now you're looking at all the wrong metrics in life, because nicer and better and all that shit doesn't mean anything over the course of your life. And so jealousy is a tough one to root out anyway. Like, it's just something you want to root out of your life because it's no good. You're using the wrong form of comparison. We have comparison so that we can feel safe in the world, right? Not to put where you're at over where someone else is at, because you have such an incomplete picture of where anybody else is at that if you have any kind of jealousy, it's just because you're looking at the problem wrong. So we got to root that out anyway. The question for you today, if you're in your morning commute or whatever, is like, where in your life are you experiencing pain, resentment, or jealousy? And then the thing to ask yourself is, okay, so desire is the root of pain. What am I desiring right now that I'm not getting? How could I reframe? How could I think about that a little bit differently? Expectation is the root of resentment. So if that's the case, then where am I expecting something that perhaps that expectation is no longer fair, right? And maybe it's because you haven't communicated what it is that you need. So you're expecting someone to know what it is you need, but because you haven't clearly communicated it, you're resenting them for it. I don't know how many times that happens in relationships or business relationships. It's like one person has an expectation of what they need, so they expect it from the other person. Because they can't clearly communicate it, it doesn't happen, and they start to resent that other person. That's another one. And then entitlement is the root of jealousy, and that one is pretty self-explanatory. But find some entitlement in your own life so you can figure out where it shows up, because if you don't, it'll just run your life, and that becomes a huge issue. So I think we all deal with it to one degree or less, but you have to understand where it does show up in your own life. But desire is the root of pain. Expectation is the root of resentment. And entitlement is the root of jealousy. And love is at the root of morning coffee. I love you guys. We'll talk tomorrow, same time, same place, on the Morning Coffee Podcast.
I go to battle with my doubts, wage a war with my ego. I try to feed the good and starve the evil. All of these things that I faced before, they seem to come right back and ask for more. But I won't run away from them, 'cause I can't hide from all the things that live within. So I will rise above the fear and let them in. And it's gonna hurt, but that's the word. It's gonna hurt, but that's the word. I keep reminding myself that I've got the key, and I'm the only one who can set me free. I can beat the the demons and brave the storm. Even if they manifest in